Natasha. We're back for another episode of exciting cybersecurity talk. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you, Satish.
So, I want to talk about elevators today. Before the elevators, you've got an upcoming webinar.
Yes, it's tomorrow with Durham College, and it's on smart home and security tips for smart home.
Amazing, amazing.
Yes.
Guys, if this video comes out before the show, go sign up and watch it. If this video comes out after, please go and watch the recap and get in touch with us so we can share with you information about what we discussed in that webinar. But today I want to talk about elevators, man. I know we touched on sensors the last time, and I remember reading a case study where a bunch of hackers took control of the elevator in a building and we're controlling it with people inside, right? So let's talk about like cybersecurity and something as critical as an elevator that buildings, sort of take for granted.
Yes, a lot has changed in buildings like elevators. Back those days, elevators were isolated systems, not connected, and were there in the building. But with IoT, internet, elevators have become an integrated part in a complex building system.
Right.
That's where we have started to talk about cybersecurity in elevator system. And things have changed a lot on the operational side as well. With elevators connected over internet, they are now available to technicians. Efficiency has increased because technicians have started to capture data and started to do analytics and have increased the general building safety. But
Right.
with all this connectivity comes the cyber risk.
Yeah, and is this a bigger threat for newer buildings where you don't even have buttons anymore, where it AI tells you which elevator to go into, versus older buildings, or is it across the board there's an opportunity for improved cyber, protection?
It's for both, like for old buildings and new buildings, because elevators were not designed keeping connectivity and cybersecurity in mind.
Right.
So there are vulnerabilities that are there in software. So that's the same
Mm,
across all the buildings. Elevators are prone to malware, worms, viruses via the network. And in
right.
some cases where elevators are not connected on internet, but technicians go plug in USB to run their service tools. And if the
Mm,
USB is infected, there you go.
yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah.
and then there are threats that are posed due to unauthorized access by employees or vendors. And some of the threats with these new elevator systems where there is built-in AI, there are additional threats, but common threats are available, like are there across all the elevators.
Hmm.
And then with internet, there is denial of service attack or a sabotage to elevators that hackers can
So,
plan.
so if I'm a building investor or property manager, I don't take care of the elevators. It's
Hmm.
outsourced, right?
Yes.
So any suggestions on from a risk assessment, or also some tips on, what am I looking for? And is it my problem or is it a third party vendor, or, you know, how do we start to think about this from the non sort of expert side?
As we say, cybersecurity is everyone's responsibility. So be it property manager, operations manager, or your vendor. So everyone has a role to play. So when it comes to do risk assessment of elevator, it's very different as how we do risk assessment for other systems. Because think from the point of view of safety. When we do the assessment on elevators, we have to keep in mind the safety of tenants and service technician. So
Hmm.
security measures should not adversely affect the safe functioning of the system.
Right.
It has to align with the safety requirement of the system. Second thing, the architecture. We have seen different ways the elevator systems are integrated and are deployed in a building. So
Mm.
when we do a risk assessment, we consider the architecture of the building. So like for example, the like elevator system has a machine room, has a destination dispatch system, and has an elevator management system.
Right.
And then there are trust zones, which we trust and are safe zones. So if your machine room, destination dispatch, and elevator management system are all in a safe zone and are hardwired, are connected using hardwire,
Right.
they are safe. So there's a
Mhm.
different way of doing a risk assessment and remediation. But if your machine room is in a safe zone and your destination dispatch and your elevator management system are connected over Wi-Fi,
Right.
it poses additional risk because if someone hacks that connection, can cause harm to your dispatch system and elevator management system.
Hmm.
So these are the two major things we keep in mind when we do the risk assessment.
Right. And then how involved do we get with the third party vendors?
So we work closely with the third party vendors when we do the risk assessment, because when it comes to architecture, we need their help to understand this architecture and the safety of the equipment. We understand protocol, we understand the functioning, but
Right.
then there is more to when it comes to how the cable cards work or how the controls work. That's where we work closely with the vendors when we do the security risk assessment for elevators.
That's amazing. So hopefully everybody's got some good insights into how elevators can actually be a point of issue and attack if it's not thought through properly. Any parting tips, things that could be actionable immediately?
Yes, simple things like when you apply security measures, apply multiple layers of protection. So if one line of defense breaks, the asset is still defended by at least another layer.
Right.
Then technicians use service tools to maintain the elevators, to capture data from the elevator. And the way they use the tools is very different. Like some technicians, they come in a building and directly connect with the asset.
Right.
So in that case, they have to make sure the connection is secure, or if they are plugging in the USB, they need to make sure to scan the USB before plugging it. But if the technician is remotely accessing the elevator or the asset and is using service tool, so then make sure you have a multi-factor authentication.
Hmm.
Because if you are changing any configuration, you need to make sure the channel you are using to access the asset is secure, and you need to make sure the person who is doing this is an authorized person.
Right. And I think I know the answer, but I want to not make the assumption that our listeners don't know it. But if your elevator is been compromised, for however it happened, what is like the first thing I should do? Do I call the vendor? Are we the first phone call? Like, what happens if something does happen?
So if the system is compromised and you see a visible sign of compromise, first of all, isolate the system, disconnect the system from internet and don't turn it off. And we discussed this in our previous video where we talked about incident management.
Right.
So do not turn off your system, but disconnect from the internet. Stop the use of the system and call your vendor or your local consultant who help with the incident management, so that they come, they collect forensics, they do the analysis, and they restore the system.
Yeah. No, it's great. It's great. And anybody watching, um, we would love to talk to you about it if this is an area of concern or any of the videos that we've ever made talking about the various things that can impact your building. Also, maybe Herschel will leave a link to the other video that we made on what happens when something happens so somebody can revisit it. Um, and then there's been another exciting cybersecurity segment with myself, Satish Bala, and Harsha, CEO K-Tech Labs. And then we'll come back to you guys with another exciting topic. What do you think, Harsha?
Yes, cool.
Awesome. We'll see you guys in a minute. Bye.
Bye.